We have here something that looks simple, but not easy to do. And you can take it from me. We have here the simple instructions of how to put together a little table with wheels on it. Sounds simple. How could that be complicated? Well, first of all, they got pictures in here of everything, but there's pictures of stuff that I didn't even see. I suppose it was all there. Then I realized I only found the English. It was in every other language, but the English was there down at the bottom. So maybe anybody experienced, having difficulty getting stuff at the store and then thinking you could put it together? Show of hands. Did anybody? Oh, that makes me feel a lot better. Everybody else, I guess my credit to you. Looks simple, but not easy to do. Well, in our gospel today, Jesus gives us a message that sounds easy to follow, but not always easy to do. Now, one of the religious leaders that were opposed to Jesus tries to get him to answer a question in the wrong way. He says, "What is the greatest of the commandments?" Well, Jesus said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. And this is the greatest commandment, and the second is just like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." Everything else depends on these two. What he does is a pretty simple answer to what God expects of us. What are we supposed to do? Well, like so many things in life, it's nice to have it short and simple, but that doesn't always make it easy to do. Now, most of us here certainly have faith, or we wouldn't be here tonight. But that's not quite necessarily loving God with all our heart, and all our soul, and all our mind. If only we could give ourselves to God the way we should, all the rest of it would truly be simple, huh? It's all there. How could we love God with all our heart and not love people that God made? It all fits together, doesn't it? Huh? Well, not always easy to do, but maybe an example will help. Some years back, I met a man who truly, at least at that moment, loved God with all his heart. See, he'd been living on the streets and using drugs. And then just before, got sick. Well, shortly after he just started not feeling good, he was arrested. Well, at the jail, they diagnosed him with a very serious case of tuberculosis. And if he hadn't been treated, he would have died shortly. And he knew from that time on, that he did have a God that loved and cared for him. And he didn't even have a coat to wear, and the weather was cold that day, yet he loved God with all his heart. And that's quite simply what we're called to do. Now, loving our neighbor, that can be even more difficult, right? That can really give us a challenge. Well, again, it's something that we need to approach one day at a time. Just like our love for God. The love for God that we just try to show one day at a time. Well, it's the same with the love for our neighbor. One day at a time. And even if we really don't feel that we love our neighbor, we can still act as though we love our neighbor by what we do. Because God doesn't, in the end, God isn't going to ask us, God's going to ask us, what'd you do? Not how did you feel about doing it. What did you do? Not what you felt. I don't care what you felt. It's what we do. Maybe some simple act of kindness that we wouldn't ordinarily do. Could be just something going out of our way, just a little bit, to show someone else kindness. And this is the beginnings of the way God asks us to love our neighbor. And again, maybe an example will help. The other day, co-worker and I, friend, met a man who had a long time drinking problem, which he freely admitted. He might have been drinking that day. But he told us that he was tired of all this and wanted to stop. Well, my first reaction was, I don't think he's going to stop, so why spend all this time talking to him about it? But my coworker and friend, he stopped and just talked to the man. Told him that he was the only one that could decide to stop. And he told him, spent some time talking to him about some of the places he could go for help. How to do that. Didn't take too long, but he spent the time doing it. And did the man stop drinking? I don't know. But my friend showed that simple act of love that God wants each of us to do for our neighbor. Now what God asked of us is not easy. Never has been. So now, as we continue to prepare and share in the body and blood of Christ, let's ask our God for the help we need to do that. The help that we need to love our God with all our heart, mind, and soul, and to share that love with those around us.